All right, Donald Trump has officially initiated the first trade war of his second term, and it was with Colombia, of all countries. One of our closest allies in South America has now imposed retaliatory tariffs after Donald Trump threatened to impose tariffs this morning, and it's a complete mess. The United States is going to be a pariah on the global stage within 6 months' time. I'm calling it now. But Petro, the president of Colombia, just issued a scathing response to Trump's tariffs, and I want to break that down because it is some good stuff. It is a blueprint on how to resist to Trump when other world leaders, billionaires across America as well, seem to be caving. Let me just run you down what's happened. So Trump hit Colombia with tariffs this morning. He said he was imposing large tariffs and significant sanctions on Colombia after the Colombian government refused to accept 2 military cargo flights carrying deported Colombians. And the thing is, we need to push back on the right-wing narrative that has emerged today. They are all trying to spin this as a Trump victory because Petro ended up accepting the deported Colombians, but just on his own terms. So Trump has been sending immigrants to other countries in military planes, shackled at the wrists and the legs, treating them like prisoners when they're just normal human beings. And the Colombian president said, no, we're not accepting this. We're not accepting Colombians in this state. You take them somewhere else, send them back properly. And then he sent his own presidential planes to get the Colombians, to get the citizens properly. And the right-wing media was spinning it as this huge victory for Trump. Trump's tariffs had no consequences. And they were saying Petro bent the knee. That is not what happened. That is not the narrative that's not the narrative we can allow to emerge because Trump did not take the win here. If anything, he made products more expensive for American consumers. So let's run up to speed on what happened here. The Latin American country has long been a crucial U.S. ally, even under the tenure of the new president. The U.S. is Colombia's largest trade and investment partner with over $39 billion in goods and services traded between the countries in 2022. And listen, between 2019 and 2024, Colombia allowed hundreds of these planes under President Biden. He just said, in this case, you can't deport them like they're criminals when they're not. So them being our ally means that this could have been solved over one phone call. These trade wars are just unnecessary. All right, Petro ordered Colombian officials to turn away military planes carrying deportees. He said, quote, I can't force migrants to stay in a country where they're not wanted, but that country should return them with dignity and respect towards them, and also our country. Trump then wrote in a Truth Social post that he was imposing emergency 25% tariffs, and Petro said in a response he had ordered Colombia's foreign trade minister to raise tariffs on imports to 25%. Trump then said, in 1 week, the tariffs will rise to 50%. It is just an escalatory trade war, and it's not needed. But I want to break down what Petro said because this is a really good example of how other leaders can resist. The two people that come to mind right now are Petro and Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico. They've both really struck back at Donald Trump in a compelling way, in ways that Trudeau honestly wasn't able to. But before I read this, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and watch until the end. So he said, Trump, I don't really like traveling to the US. It's a bit boring, but I confess that there are some commendable things. I like going to the black neighborhoods of Washington, where I saw an entire fight in the US Capitol between black Americans and Latinos with barricades, which seemed like nonsense to me because they should join together. Remember, this guy is a leftist. He's probably farther left than me, probably farther left than you. I don't know. I confess that I like Walt Whitman and Paul Simon and Noam Chomsky and Miller. I confess that Sacco and Vanzetti, who have my blood, are memorable in the history of USA, and I follow them. They were murdered by labor leaders with the electric chair, the fascists who are within the USA and as well as my country. He then said, I don't like your oil, Trump. You're going to wipe out the human species because of greed. That's a compelling line. Maybe one day over a glass of whiskey, which I accept despite my gastritis, we can talk frankly about this, but it's difficult because you consider me an inferior race, and I'm not, nor is any Colombian. So if you know someone who is stubborn, that's me, period. You can try to carry out a coup with your economic strength and your arrogance like they did with Allende, but I will die in my law. I resisted torture and I resist you. I don't want slavers next to Colombia. We already had many and we freed ourselves. What I want next to Colombia are lovers of freedom. and that's not Donald Trump. If you can't accompany me, I'll go elsewhere. Colombia is the heart of the world, and you didn't understand that. This is the land of yellow butterflies, of the beauty of Remedios, and also of the kernels of Buendia, of which I am one, perhaps the last. You will kill me, but I will survive in my people, which is before yours in the Americas. We are peoples of the winds, the mountains, the Caribbean Sea, and freedom. You don't like our freedom? Okay, I don't shake hands with white slavers. I shake hands with the white libertarian heirs of Lincoln and the black and the white farm boys of the USA, at whose graves I cried and prayed on a battlefield. Incredibly, incredibly heartfelt stuff. I mean, Colombia is supposed to be the ally of the United States, but Donald Trump's incredibly brash and abrasive method of foreign policy and domestic policy, they call it the madman theory, where he goes around acting like a madman, and by definition, it'll work like 10 to 20% of the time, but most of the time, it'll just start an escalatory trade war. But let's finish this. He said, "My land is made up of goldsmiths who worked in the time of the Egyptian pharaohs. You will never rule us." He keeps saying, "I raise a flag," and as Gaydon said, even if it remains alone, it will continue to be raised with Latin American dignity. That is a dignity of America. Your blockade does not scare me because Colombia, besides being the country of beauty, is the heart of the world. I know that you love beauty as I do. Do not disrespect it, and you will give it your sweetness. From today on, Colombia is open to the entire world with open arms. We are builders of freedom, life, and humanity. I am informed that you impose a 50% tariff on the fruits of our human labor to enter the United States, and I will do the same," he says. "Let our people plant corn that was discovered in Colombia and freed the world." And I have a few takeaways from this. First of all, it was obviously written in a beautiful manner, but also Trump's policies not only hurt Americans, but hurt our allies. Well, this person's coming at it from an actual patriotic standpoint. This is one of the most patriotic things I've read, and it wasn't even nationalistic. It was like, hey, we are such a good country, we deserve respect on the global stage. Meanwhile, Trump, his policies, the tariffs, let's just take the tariffs that he imposed on Colombia, they hurt Americans. Higher tariffs mean higher prices, plain and simple. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. The coffee on your table, or the flowers in your home, or the flowers that you were about to get in about 2 or 3 weeks on February 14th are going to be more expensive because Trump can't help but alienate our trading partners. And also, today was a really good example of how the right-wing media dominates the narrative because Petro did not cave. We all need to remember that. He's holding firm. He even doubled down and said that he's stubborn. Meanwhile, every single right-winger took the fact that Petro actually ended up taking the migrants in the proper form as proof that Trump's tariffs work, but no. We need to make sure they can't create this alternate reality, this bubble. We need to make sure that when any sort of prices are higher, whether it's gas prices, egg prices, coffee prices, we are pointing the direct line between Trump's tariffs and why things are more expensive. We need to continue to point out that Trump just significantly disrupted an economic relationship that benefited us greatly because he could not help but impose tariffs and try to bluff on the world stage. But American consumers are going to bear the brunt of this. Again, Colombia supplies 20% of U.S. coffee imports, over a third of cut flowers. So as the prices drive up, we need to, again, draw that direct line, and that's where we come in. If you guys enjoyed this video, drop a like, subscribe. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.